by the Emperor of Mankind. We've just got the final episode in the brand new Pariah Nexus animation, and we're going to do what we always do in this channel. I'm going to jump in, I'm going to do a big breakdown, and then we're going to talk about not only this episode and all the cool things inside of it, but the animation as a whole. And hopefully this is the way forward now for Games Workshop. So let's jump in and let's get waffling. So the actual animation opens up from the Deathmark point of view. This is the ending of episode 2, where we see the Salamander and the sister having an argument. The sister, of course, wants to shoot the civilians because she finds them unworthy for the cause, and the Salamander stops it. The Deathmark is watching this conversation and is lining up his shot to take out the Salamander. But as we know, as soon as he takes that shot, the Salamander realizes and jumps into cover, and then the Deathmark starts opening up on the position of the Salamander and the Sister of Battle. What we see now from this scene is that the Deathmark is actually communicating with Illuminator Seraz. Illuminator Seraz is basically saying, is the job done yet? And the Deathmark is kind of like, I'm doing it right now. He's like getting told off in this scene as bolters are flying all around him. This scene is actually kind of ironic because the Salamander is disabled. The Deathmark manages to put a big boulder on him and he has the advantage of the battle. But it's the Illuminator Seraz's experiments, the zombified guard that have been roaming the city. All of a sudden they pop up, they appear, and they begin to walk upon the Deathmark and literally overwhelm him with their numbers. The ending of this scene is the Deathmark trying to escape through his portal, but he's grabbed by a Death Corps of Krieg and he's literally dragged back by the bodies of the zombified guard. They're all tearing at him, ripping apart his breastplate, his hands, his face. He's literally stuck being ripped apart by the zombified guard. The next scene opens up with the Salamander and the sister and of course the band of survivors. The Salamander manages to find an Auspex scanner on one of the fallen Ultramarines, and he literally tells the group that they need to start heading towards a bunker where they should be safe. This is where the Imperial reinforcements should have gone to, and there should be ships there to get them all off-world. The sister then of course pulls the Salamander aside and saying, why are you giving these people hope? There's nothing, there's no reinforcements. And the Salamander's like, I will not tell a child he is going to die tonight. This is literally just Chad Salamander stuff at this point. This is why the Salamanders are one of the most coolest Space Marine chapters in existence. They will never give up hope on the civilian population they are sent to protect. They will die to protect the civilians of an Imperium populace. We then pop back to the Deathmark, who has survived, but he's all twisted and broken, his hands like back to front, his head's falling down his chest, and he's literally in a very, very bad state. He actually shows in this scene that he tries to use like his portal towards the Salamander and the sister, but he can't. That's all broken, so he literally now has to track them on foot. He does start self-repairing in some way, like his hand goes back to its normal position, his arm starts connecting, everything like that, so he is back on the hunt, but he can't use his portal properly to actually get to them at this second. We then cut back to the Salamander and the sister. Yes, there's a lot of cuts in this episode. This time the Salamander literally guts an Imperial guard that's standing in the way. Don't worry, it's one of the zombified guard, one of the experimented zombified guard. The group walk past them like they're trying to hide the kids' eyes and stuff, like don't look at like the naughty man and stuff, as they're literally walking across this ruined city. And this is where the priest in the group makes a big mistake. The Salamander and the civilians are basically walking forward, and the priest and the sister are like bringing up the rear, and the priest basically turns to the sister and says, what's on your mind, sister? And she's like, you know, everyone's unworthy and stuff, and he's like, don't worry about it, I will forgive you for your sins. And she's like, what sins? And it's like, you know, you basically lost this world, you lost this battle. And that literally makes the sister snap. She like turns on him and is like, what did you do in this war, you coward in a crypt, saving yourself? Like the priest falls and he's like, oh no, I'm about to die here. And she's just literally berating him for a coward he is. He did nothing during this war. He didn't even pick up a weapon and fight for the bloody Emperor. What do I have to be sinful for? It's you that's full of sin, not me. And this is where we see the Imperial Guard companion of the sister pop back up, you know, the figment of her imagination, and we actually get to learn where this companion is from, because we start getting flashbacks when the sister and this Imperial Guard were holding a position on the bridge. The Necron forces were coming forward. It's like this epic battle again. They're holding the line, the guard and the sisters, bolters, lasguns, there's Necron weapons going off, and we actually get to see the battle where this Imperial Guard dies. She's literally just stabbed through the chest by a huge Necron blade, and then it comes to the realization that the sister has been seeing this guard as a figment of her imagination all this time. And then the ending of this scene is the sister pointing her bolter at the priest, but we don't see it, but we hear it. We hear the bolter go off, and then it cuts to the next scene. Now, while all this is going on, the Salamander and the group following him has reached their destination. This is the center point where the Imperial reinforcement should have been, but it's just a crater. There's wrecked Thunderhawks, literally devastation. There's no one there, and the civilians turn and say, what do we do now? Where do we go now? And the Salamander's like, don't worry, there's still hope. Let's head towards the west. But as he says that, he hears the bolt gun from, of course, the sister, and this then alerts an enemy that is actually in the location. It's a Scorpec destroyer, a lone Scorpec destroyer, and he comes out of the rubble and he sees the Salamander and the group, and then he begins to charge the group. The Salamander puts his helmet on like an absolute badass, tells the group, head west, do not care for me, head to the west. And then we have this epic duel where the Salamander starts preaching nocturne vows, leaps through the air, and literally crashes down and begins his battle with this Scorpec destroyer. We then bounce back to the sister, who has not killed the priest. She literally looks at the priest and says, forgive me, priest. You know, there's a lot going on. The priest, of course, forgives her. But as this happens, she hears the bolt shot of the Salamander then, and then runs towards that. Then we jump back to the battle scene with the destroyer and the Salamander. The Salamander's literally beaten. Half of his mask is missing. The destroyer comes in for the final kill. The Salamander throws like a cheeky grenade that explodes, knocking the destroyer off course. But the battle's still going on. He's not back. He's about to be literally sliced in half, but he moves, and then he loses his hand. The Salamander loses his hand, but he's still going in Vulcan's name. And the sister comes in, shoots the destroyer. That gives the Salamander a chance to look around to find another weapon, and he sees it. He sees a chainsaw belonging to the Ultramarines, and he picks it up, and then the battle reignites. It's the Salamander versus the destroyer again, and he goes in on him. The Salamander stabs the chainsaw in the back of the destroyer, but the destroyer knocks him back, kicks him down to the ground, goes to swipe him down again, but the sister again comes to his aid, knocks the destroyer off course, and the Salamander sticks the chainsaw in the throat of the destroyer, literally ripping it apart. He has been conquered. And in this moment, the Salamander stands over the destroyer and literally looks down at him and says, your empire had its chance. This time is ours. He's just looking down on the destroyer as it's dying and fading away. Now, as he says that, the Salamander steps off the destroyer's body, then literally falls down to the ground. It looks like the Salamander has served his service to the Emperor. Now, we then return to the sister and the group of survivors who have come back, and they're like, you know, what's happened? The sister says, like, we literally have to go to the west. Some of the kids look up at the sister and like, but where is Sakan? And she doesn't, like, have the heart to tell them. And then, boom, the sister gets shot in the back by none other than the Death Mark himself. The horrified group of survivors run for cover as the sister drops to her knees. The Death Mark is like slow walking like a badass Clint Eastwood out of the dust as the sister is literally overtaken by this Necron weapon. The Necron then looks down upon her. She tries to reach for a bolt pistol, but he stands on it and crushes it in front of her, basically saying, like, you know, mission completed kind of thing. But then the sister says, I hear an angel. And the Necron's like, what? And she's like, I hear an angel. And then out of nowhere, it's Sakan with a steel chair. He's survived. He's got one arm and his combat blade, and he charges down the Necron. He shoves it into his neck. The Necron is trying to get into his portal. This is the final showdown now. But the Necron manages to parry and make away once again. Sakan looks down upon the sister and says thank you, because without the sister, he would have died. He then goes over to the surviving group and tells them that they have to go west. He can no longer travel with them. He has to hunt the hunter. You get this cool little scene where one of the kids says, "But Sakan, you only have one arm." And he's so blunt. He's like, "Child, I hunted dragons on my world. I can handle this." The survivors then give a final farewell to him. They all do the Imperial Eagle across their chest. Sakan gives them a little nod like farewell, good luck on your journey. They head off. Again, he looks back down to the sister, gives his thanks, and then heads off to hunt for the Necron warrior. And then one of the final scenes we have, we're back with Illuminator Ceres as he's still doing his experiments, and then one of his little spider crabs comes on the chest of one of his experiments, and it is a message from the Death Mark. The Death Mark literally says like he wasn't able to eliminate the salamander, and Ceres is like, "Well, don't come back here because I'm not giving you repairs because you failed. Why should I waste my resources on a failure?" Now, while they're having this conversation, all of a sudden, out of like the hologram, the salamander literally stabs the Death Mark through the neck. And then he appears on the hologram and basically says to Illuminator Ceres, like, "How hubris you must be to think you will not escape the judgment of me and my brothers." Like, the salamanders are coming for you, Ceres. You cannot escape us. Ceres is like, "LOL, this is kind of funny. What is pushing you? What is making you go?" He's just like looking at this as like one big game, one big experiment. And that is literally the final scene we kind of have with Sakan and any involvement so far with Pariah Nexus. He literally says what he says to Ceres through like the severed head of the Necron Death Mark, and his scene then fades out and we open up to the last scene of the animation. And then we open up on like a wooded area, and it's an Imperial Guard patrol that are out searching for enemies. And when I say enemies, they're literally looking for the zombified experiments of Ceres. They're literally just exterminating them, putting them down. There is a base of command still left on this planet where the Imperium still holds. And of course, this is where the survivors are heading to. But it seems that we get an awful twist, because as they're going through the forest, they actually come across the surviving group. And when I say surviving group, there's just one of the children that appears to be left. He's exhausted and he's like delirious, and he literally turns to the guard and says, "Sakan of the salamanders has sent me." And they don't understand because they haven't been a part of this. And like through the Vox, it says like kill, even though it's a child. And then it fades to black and all you hear is the lasgun shot. And it's kind of a cliffhanger now. Like, did they actually kill the child? Is this the grim dark ending? We just don't know. And that is where the animation ends, of course. This was the final episode. They've said this multiple times now on their Warhammer community articles. Is it going to be the final of Pariah Nexus? Maybe they'll have season 2. We literally left us on a cliffhanger, like I said, with the child, Sakan himself. Is he going to try and take on Illuminator Ceres all by himself? Is the planet going to be relieved with Imperial aid? We just don't know. Hopefully, this does carry on. As a whole, I'm kind of let down by how many episodes there were in this series. 3 episodes is a bit of a blow. I was expecting at least maybe 5 episodes, at least 5 episodes. But from what we got from these episodes, I did think the animation was great, the sound was great, the voice acting was great, the visual were great, the battles were great, the way the salamander moved, the way the sisters, bolt guns sounded, all that stuff I thought was absolutely fantastic. So M2 Animation, who did this, my hat is off to you. I just wanted a little bit more. I want like a full length, just a big full length show altogether. I think this was around 60 minutes, because it was like, one episode was like 18 minutes, another one was like 22 minutes, the other one was like another maybe like 23 minutes. So it's literally an hour. It'd be kind of funky to see if Games Workshop puts it all together as one big movie and then release it rather than like an episode thing. Because one of the things that was really annoying in it is how many times it kept jumping. You'll probably understand that, like with me doing the breakdown. It's like we're having this battle, then all of a sudden we're jumping over here, then over here, then over here, then over here. So yeah, if they can like try and smooth it all and put it together as one constantly flowing thing, I think it would go down a lot better with the fans and also as a viewing process. But all in all, I'd probably give this around an 8 out of 10, really. Like, the animations were smooth. Like, I know a lot of people keep comparing it to Astartes. I have to keep saying this. Astartes is the peak of the mountain, okay? I don't think anything is going to be ever better than Astartes. But that doesn't mean you can't come close and enjoy other things. And like I've enjoyed all the other things that are out there, but I'm not comparing it to Astartes because Astartes is Astartes. I love this. I thought it was great. I think this is the first major animation or animation project from Games Workshop which really may go out to the general crowd, let's say, and get their interest. The other stuff is more or less made for us fans, I personally think. But I think this is like the right road to go down. Hopefully we'll see more, not just of Pariah Nexus, but other animations of this quality telling stories like this. And that's it. That's enough waffling from me on the video. Hopefully you enjoyed the breakdowns of this. I don't know what they're going to do now. Maybe it's going to be like, I think it's like a night animation they're doing next or something like that. If you've got any thoughts, feedback, anything like that, post it down below. If you subscribe to like Warhammer TV to watch this, tell me, what do you think? Did you enjoy this animation? Were the things that you disliked, liked, the things that I've missed out? Post it down below and we'll have a nice little talk as we always do. See you now. Have a great day and bye-bye.